galleries. The former house was in an industrial area of the city. It was her first visit. Go to the curator. He's up front in the red tie. Tell him you want to buy the portrait of Korean girl in a field. Luna leaned into the person next to her. Did you hear that voice? The man looked at her and then scurried away to the upper floors. Luna was alone in the room. There were 4 rooms here. A security guard stood in the doorway 3 rooms away, yawning while he read a book. She moved into another room. Where are you going? You're not listening to me. The voice sounded further away, as if it was in the next room. Luna walked away. She couldn't hear the voice, but she sensed its anger. She needed to remove herself from this. She didn't want to know if it was happening again. She sat staring at the stall door. Luna could hear the voice in her head. By the painting in the back called Untitled. She put her head in her hands. She finished up and walked back into the gallery. Luna stared through the doorways that separated each of the rooms. On the last wall sat a white canvas. It was titled, Here's Your Art Asshole. Then she began walking towards it. She passed the security guard. He had stopped yawning and was now scrolling on his phone. She stared at another painting. This one wasn't very good. Just another one of a naked woman on a bed. I want you, Luna, and you want me. The voice lowered. It has already been taken care of, Miss Baxter. How do you know my last name? Luna said this out loud. There was silence. You want to see me every day, don't you, Luna? She sat in the gallery. Luna felt the chill of air conditioning. She shivered. You don't even know what you want. Luna moved to the next picture. This one was a landscape. On the left side was a bar. A couple was leaning up against the wall outside. His hand was caressing her face. The sky was above all of them. Stop staring at Erica's lint trash and come over here. Young lady. An edge of ire had replaced the crispness. Luna looked at the painting across from Rebecca's. Now you're at Rebecca's painting. Are you enjoying her vanilla wannabe shit? Luna looked down. The voice was right. Her work was shit. We'll talk again when you're closer. She appeared in the doorway. There you are. She could feel the voice smile. What's your name? Luna said this out loud. Can you see me now? I'm in the green dress. Luna stood in the doorway. Luna was short and had a man's haircut that stayed slicked down. She was in a t-shirt and jeans. It was hot out there. The painting was in the corner of the room. She moved over to it. Look at you looking at me. The voice giggled. Ah, shucks. The silliness evaporated and the voice deepened. Come closer. Luna stood in front of the painting. The painting sat there. Nothing moved. She glanced at the title card. It was Untitled by Huxley Paris. The picture in the canvas was of an older woman in a green summer dress. Her hair was salt and pepper gray. In the background of the painting was a desert scene with a sex shop entitled Randy's Roundup. A woman stood outside the shop, smoking a cigarette. On the other side of the main subject was a bar called the Jester Joint. Did Huxley Paris really create you? Yes, she did. I was her last painting. Luna stepped back, questioning. The voice sensed disbelief. Ask Phyllis up front. She doesn't know if I was last, but I'm telling you I was. Luna moved further away. She could feel the painting smile at her. Nothing in the painting moved. She turned and moved back to the front desk. There was a young intern behind the desk. Is there a Phyllis here? There is. The receptionist got up and moved to the back office. An older, short woman came out of the back office. She was dressed in a 3-piece suit. One got the feeling that she never felt comfortable out of one. Is that a Huxley Paris back there? It is. Her glasses were round and tortoise shell. When was it painted? Phyllis nodded her head, then smiled. You're one of those. The estimate is that it was her last painting. We don't know. but it was one of 6 new canvases that were found in her apartment when she vanished. Luna turned away and then quickly back. Thank you. She moved to the back of the gallery. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to tell you. She placed her hands back onto the table. It was painted by the Huxley Barnes. Okay. Juliet, Luna's best friend, blinked. Who is that? Luna began to quiver. Do me a favor. Take a deep breath, eat a potato skin, then take another breath. Finish your martini, and tell me about the infamous Huxley Barnes. Luna took in a deep breath, then another. Juliet lifted a finger and waved back and forth. Do as I say. Luna reached for a potato skin. She chewed. Now the martini. The glass was tilted, and the mixture went down. Now educate me. Huxley Barnes went missing July 15th, 1986. That day, she completed 6 paintings. This painting is one of them. Oh, you. Juliet waved her hands in the air. This painting will take you into the void. Luna laughed. I know you don't believe in this stuff. In what? I believe she disappeared. Look at this world. Who wants to be here? Not me. Take me to the void. Luna pulled out a potato skin. What were the circumstances of her disappearance? She was there on Sunday and gone on Monday. Juliet threw her head back. Maybe she got sucked into the void. Both women were laughing now. The void droid got annoyed and pulled her into the void. So this is the painting? Juliet gestured towards the painting on her wall. Both women were back at Luna's cave-like basement apartment on Shaw Street. Juliet looked at it. From Huxley's Chelmsford studio to Luna's mantle. Luna, I hate Juliet. Luna ignored the voice. Juliet pointed towards a sex shop. Randy's Roundup is an interesting touch. Why would she put that there? Tell her Huxley had a crush on a man she met at a bar, named Randy. The painting's voice lowered in a mysteriously secretive way. She had a crush on a man she met at a bar. Juliet collapsed on a couch. We've all been there. She exhaled. I bet Maria is going to say something about that. Of course she will, because everyone cares about her opinion. The painting watched the girls talk and watched Columbo all night. Luna wandered around the room, cleaning up. Juliet was still asleep. Your friend is unworthy of you, Luna. What does that mean? She doesn't like you. There was a pause. Luna piled the dishes up on top of each other. I like you. You don't know me. I know more than you think I do. Who are you talking to, Luna? Luna looked around. Juliet stood there in her undies, rubbing her eyes. Luna looked away. I'm just talking to myself. Juliet snickered. When did that start? With that, she wandered off into the bathroom. Luna lay in the silence of her bedroom, hiding. She thought about taking the painting or smashing it. Then she would walk back into the room. I bet you want to destroy me, don't you, Luna? Untitled had been talking all day. I'm rewiring your brain, Luna. Then I'm going to lace it up your head again. Untitled paused. Don't be friends with Juliet anymore, Luna. She hates you anyway. She wants you to go away. You don't know her. Luna marched over to the painting and screamed at it. I know her. She then turned, grabbed her bag, and marched out of her apartment. It was dusk in the city. You could hear the heat packing up to go home for the night. Luna exhaled. She looked at her phone. Juliet was still at work. She sent a text. Want to grab something to eat? I need to talk to you about something important. She then turned to begin the walk to Juliet's office. She could grab some food at Stick Brick Z. She'd get a Bang Bang beef dish and a Hussy hamburger with cheese for Juliet. They would split an order of Chaos Chill fries. While she was in line, Juliet wrote back, "Come on up." The food was prepared, and Luna was back on the road. One more stop for a 6-pack of Diet Coke. Luna pushed the door open to Filthy Blaze Productions. She took the elevator to the 6th floor and knocked on Suite 673. Juliet opened the door. "You've arrived, my love." She threw open her arms. Luna set the food down on the meeting room table, which hadn't been used in weeks, and the feast began. After an hour of giggling and nonsense, Juliet got serious. "So, what's going on, spooky lady? You know I'm not crazy, right?" Juliet's head bounces back and forth. "I can pretend for you. I'm serious, Okay, something is wrong with the painting I bought. Is it also sleeping with your dentist, like Doug was?" No. "So what is it?" "It's talking to me." "That's why you bought it, right? Because it spoke to you?" "Well, yeah, but it's not shutting up Julie." There was a pause. "It will not shut up." There was a pause. Juliet leaned forward. "What's it saying?" "It hates you. A lot." There was a pause. Luna picked at her beef. "It keeps talking about how I should dump you." "Huh. I'm not kidding." "So, you bought a super insecure painting." Juliet reached for a fry. "There's a sentence you've never heard." There was no laughter from Luna. "Sorry about that." Luna continued to pick at her broccoli. "What would you do?" "I take it to Tim's and burn the fucking thing." The moment Luna walked in the door, she heard, "Who's Tim?" Luna stopped for a second and stared at the painting. "I don't know. Who is Tim?" She stared at the painting. It sat there in silence, looking back at her. Then she sighed. "He's a friend who has a burn pit in Wilmington." The painting stayed silent. The apartment was quiet. Luna undressed in her bedroom and came out naked. "What have you taken Tim to burn, Luna?" "Nothing." Luna collapsed on her couch. "I don't even know if the burn pit is still there." She threw up an arm. "Why, all the questions about Tim." Luna turned on the television. Untitled just sat on the wall that night, watching her watch the television. Luna woke up with a start. She knew why the painting was asking about Tim. She came out and looked at it. "You know too many things, you fucker." The painting was on the wall. There were only the sounds of the city in the background. Luna walked back into the bedroom and looked at the clock. It was 9:47 a.m. She picked up her phone and quickly called Tim. "Tim, it's Luna." "Oh, wow. Man, I haven't heard from you for years. I need some help. How can I be of service to you, pretty lady?" Luna explained the situation. "I'll be by in an hour." 57 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Luna walked up to the door. "Who is it?" "It's Tim. I'm here to help." She opened the door. "You still ask who's at the door." "Yeah, when you've dealt with the men, I have you do that." Tim walked over to the painting. "Nice painting. Sorry about what it's doing to you. Sometimes you buy something and it just doesn't work out. I've been there, honey. We all have." Tim went over, took the painting off the wall, and put it under his arm. "Can I come with you and watch this thing burn?" "Sure. I'll take you to dinner after." Tim's crematoria was at the end of a block of houses that looked like the last time they had been nice was 1985. The whole ride over there, Luna was asking questions and biting her nails. When they got there, Tim put the painting on the metal. Luna slid into the oven and then hit the button and watched it burn through the tiny window. It took less than 2 minutes, and Untitled was non-existent. "Do you feel better now?" "A little bit. It still hasn't kicked in." Luna was biting her nails. "What's your favorite restaurant?" Luna returned home. The apartment seemed very empty. She breathed a sigh of relief. She sat and watched some bad TV shows and finally fell asleep in front of the television with her hand down her pants. When she woke up, the apartment felt better. Untitled's absence had become absent. She got up and left for the day. As she rummaged through her closet, Untitled sat hidden behind some shirts and bras. It was there, making the apartment feel normal again. That day, Luna made plans for Sunday with Juliet. It was a 3-day weekend. They'd have a sleepover and some laughs. A very typical weekend. Luna arrived back at the apartment. It felt like home again. It was safe in here. The night, she snuggled up into her bed. Her fan blew air on her naked body, and she was happy once again. The woman in the green dress stood over Luna. She stared at the sleeping woman. The only sounds in the room were the fan and the murmur of a city. The woman in the green dress walked into the closet and pulled out the painting from the back. She placed the painting over Luna and left the room. The green dress fell to the bathroom floor and the shower started. The water felt good on the woman's hair. She leaned back and closed her eyes. The water beat down on her scalp. She then washed her hair. It had been too long. When she went back into the room, Luna wasn't there. The painting lay flat against the bed. The woman was naked now. She went over and picked up the painting and put it back on the wall. It was a desert landscape. At the bottom of the painting was a road. There was nothing on the road. No stores, no people, just a road and sky. There was a cleanness to the painting. The woman stepped back to admire it. Then she went around the apartment, rearranging the furniture. By the end of the day, the apartment looked different. Then the woman lay down and fell asleep. Juliet was in line to pick up dinner for her and Luna. It was a usual beef cheeseburger and chili fries. She had the sack, oh crap, in her hand when she reached the top of the stairs that led down to Luna's apartment. Just as she was about to knock on the door, it opened. A woman with long gray hair had a backpack and a green dress on. She shuffled with her keys, looking for the right one. "Who are you?" The woman turned. "I live here." "No, you don't." "I've been living here for over 3 decades, young lady." Juliet didn't know what to say. "My best friend lives here." "Where?" "In here." The woman in the green dress opened the door. Juliet cautiously entered the apartment. All of Luna's furniture was there, but it was rearranged. "This is Luna's stuff." "Is Luna your little friend?" "Yes, she is." Juliet looked down, and there was a pillow on the couch. "I bought her this pillow." "You did?" Juliet nodded. "That's very strange, because my friend Edward got that pillow about 6 years ago." "How long have you lived here?" "I've lived here since July 14th, 1986. "How is that possible?" Juliet started to get sick. "I've been coming here for 6 years. "Are you sure this is a place?" It was then that Juliet looked over and saw the painting. She stared at it. The woman in the green dress was gone. The sex store was gone. The liquor store was gone. It was just a desert landscape. Luna bought this painting last month. The woman laughed. "She did? I think I would have remembered that. That was given to me by my art curator friend Phyllis. It's an original Huxley Barnes. She was that artist, that dash." She disappeared. I know Luna told me all about it. The sickness was running faster through her body. I'm so sorry to shorten this visit, but I have a dinner engagement, so let me show you out. The woman guided Juliet to the door. Then she closed the door and locked it. "Who are you?" "Is that important, miss?" "I'm Juliet." "Well, that's not my name." The woman then slipped on a pair of rhinestone glasses. "I hope you find your wonderful little friend, Miss Juliet." The woman tittered, and then marched up the stairs and down the street. Juliet turned toward the door. The sickness came up until it was just bile. Juliet staggered back up the stairs and to the street. She wasn't hungry anymore. A twinge spurs in Kim's wrist, but she continues knocking on the apartment door. She presses the doorbell for the 5th time. Her friend Lori groans behind her. Kim looks over her shoulder and shoots her a glare. Lori segues a groan into clearing her throat before inquiring, "Do you think he's even home?" "I know he's home. Tora saw his car when we parked. Remember?" Lori retorts, Yeah, but you've been knocking for like 10 minutes. If he hasn't come to the door by now, I don't think he will. Besides, I'm hungry as fuck. Tora piggybacks. Me too. I didn't eat this morning. Kim shuts him down with, Shane has food inside. You both can go crazy once he opens the door. Before she turns around and continues knocking with one hand, pulling out her phone with the other hand to call him. For the last 3 weeks, it's been radio silence from Shane. Originally, none of the girls found this weird. The election was stressful for all of them, but Shane took it particularly hard due to the prospect of losing access to his testosterone. Shane's always been reclusive, but never to such an intense degree. He entirely stopped attending his classes, and Kim has started to suspect that he hasn't even been leaving his apartment. He would always respond to Kim's invitations to go out, but he's completely quit interacting with her at all. She had to resort to weekly "Are you alive?" texts, to which he would only answer with a thumbs-up emoji. As the phone rings, Lori and Tora lean up against the railing alongside his porch and chat. He'd probably relapse. Tora laughs. How do you relapse on weed? Lori chuckles. He'd find a way. This is fucking ridiculous. If I knew we'd be doing this, I wouldn't have come along. Kim balls up her fist and begins striking the door with a near-violent urgency. Lori shouts over the banging, Kim! She whips around. What? Let's just go. He's not coming out. You're being super loud. You're gonna piss off his neighbors. Kim grits her teeth, but finally quits the knocking. She sighs as she ends her attempted call to Shane. As she turns around and takes her first step toward the girls, the door opens. Shane's eyes are puffy and red, the bags under them leaving purple-gray craters in his cheeks, small indigo veins cutting like little rivers through the dark canyons. Once the door is open, both of his hands instantly clamp over his ears. He winces, standing partially hunched over in his limbs, eyes, and neck sporadically twitch. He squeezes his eyes shut. Kim rushes to his side. Tora and Lori shoot off from the metal railing and surround him. The girls clamor, asking what's wrong. His fingers curl. His uncut fingernails dig through his greasy dark hair and into his scalp. He barks like a Doberman. Come in. Please, come in. It's quietest in the bathroom. Shane spins around and scrambles back inside. The girls all exchange concerned glances, but follow him in. His agonized snarls echo through the dirty apartment as he tears through the living room and barrels down the narrow hallway, leading to the bathroom. He hip-checks the edge of the couch and slams hard into the wall when he can't hit the turn in time. He's unfazed and scampers on. Kim lunges forward to follow him, but is stopped by Lori's firm grip around the curve of her arm, pulling her backwards. Oh, hell no. Let's go. Tora turns on her heels and begins to head out with them. Kim yanks her arm out of Lori's grasp. Kim cries out, Come on, we need to help him. Are you serious? What the hell are we gonna do? He's having a psychotic break. Let's go. We can call an ambulance or something dash. Kim darts down the hallway and throws the bathroom door open, Lori growls, but trudges with Tora behind her. Shane is curled up in a ball, leaning himself upright against the sink cabinets. Blood trickles from his nose, but he either doesn't notice or doesn't care. He looks up at Kim with tearful hazel eyes and asks, Can you hear them? Kim crouches down, getting on her knees so she can look Shane in his eyes. Lori and Tora stand in the doorway, looking down at the two of them on the floor. Kim cradles Shane's face in her two hands as she assures him, There's no noise. What are you hearing? Shane borderline screams in exasperation. The grass? Kim frowns. What? Tora giggles. Lori grumbles. Dude, what are you on? Shane begs. Close the door. I can barely hear myself think. Please. The girls ease themselves into the cramped bathroom and wait for Shane to calm himself down. He asks Tora to turn the fan on, Somehow this white noise and the airflow help soothe him. They all sit crisscross on the tile floors across from each other, as Shane explains what's been going on. It started abruptly one morning, nearly a month ago. His eyes opened and he could hear voices in his head. Not just one, not two, not 10. Shane could hear millions of muffled voices speaking over one another. Shane could recount some sporadic times in his life where he had heard voices in his head which gave him clear instructions to harm himself in the most convenient way he could. Somehow this was worse. He tried to wait it out. The voices didn't stop. The amorphous drone of constant noise never let up for even a second. He could fight off random demands to chug laundry detergent or cut off his fingers, but he had no idea what to do with this new mentality. It was when, while still in bed, Shane covered his ears with his palms that he realized the voices weren't in his head at all. They were coming from outside. He got up and looked out his window, scanning for some event or gathering of people, and saw nothing. Just a big patch of emerald grass surrounding his building and all the others in the complex. Shane stuffed cotton balls in his ears before he ventured outdoors. The ceaseless chatter swells as soon as he opens the door. Ears covered. He stomps to the parking lot and looks around, only seeing one or two of his neighbors who give him odd looks as they spot him, seemingly unbothered by the racket. He noticed as he walked that the rattle of voices rose and fell. Shane further plugged his ears with his fingers, then trekked towards where the volume was the highest. It was the middle of the grass patch where the voices rang the loudest. The grass was speaking, not to him, not about any particular topic. Every individual blade of grass was having its own eternal discussion with one another. So, okay, Lori interrupts, you've been hearing these voices for weeks, and you're positive that it's the grass. Yes, I know it's the grass. There's nowhere else where it could be coming from. Nothing else could possibly produce so many voices. Lori scoffs. Maybe it could be all the particles of dirt talking. Did you think about that? Shane's face drops at the suggestion. Kim makes a swatting motion towards her, urging her to quit. Tora cocks her head at Shane, then asks, is there anything you can do to make the voices stop? No, that's the weird thing. He turned his whole body to face Tora as he raves. Nothing that I've done has made them all stop. I've tried asking nicely. I've tried yelling at them. I got so mad one day that I ripped a handful of grass out of the ground, and all the blades I tore up just started fucking screaming. They wouldn't stop. They never stopped. I can't sleep. I can't go outside. The noise is everywhere. Nothing makes them shut up. I feel like I died and went to hell. Shane burst into tears, his hands still pressed tightly to his ears. Kim crawls over to him on her hands and knees and wraps him up in a hug, humming lowly in her throat to distract him from the hellish noise he described. What can we do to help you, Shane? She plants soft kisses on his face, which he has no reaction to, but she feels his body untense in her arms. Kim pulls away and runs her tongue over her lips, tasting his fatigued, salty tears. I don't know. I don't think there's anything you could do. Kim eyeballs the price tags on the two boxes containing noise-canceling headphones and scowls, then turns to face Lori. Lore, which one should I get? I think this brand will be better for the actual noise canceling, but this one is cheaper and it might be more comfortable for him to wear. Lori shrugs. I honestly don't give a shit. I think all of this is unnecessary. She gestures to Kim's shopping cart. At the black soundproof curtains, the white noise machine, and multiple boxes of earplugs that she picked out for Shane. Kim rolls her eyes and tosses the cheaper pair of headphones into the cart. Kim, stop. He doesn't need any of this crap. You know he's just acting up to get attention. He might be having an episode, but there's no way it's as bad as he says it is. He always pulls some shit like this when he gets bored. Kim folds her arms and bites down hard on the inside of her cheek. She sighs, then questions, if Shane were doing this to get attention, why hasn't he reached out to any of us for weeks? Why did I have to bang on his door for 10 minutes in order to give him the attention that he apparently craves so badly? Well, Dash, I know there's a million things you'd rather be doing right now, but Shane needs our help. Yeah, he might be having a psychotic break, he might be annoying, but he is clearly in a lot of pain, and I would really appreciate it if you quit being such a huge bitch about everything. The corners of Lori's lips twist upwards into a snarl, but before she can escalate their conversation into an argument, Tora reappears, bebopping up to the cart and setting 2 12-packs of hard seltzer into it. Any urge to fight between the two girls fizzles out instantly. No, Kim orders, put those back. Why? He'll knock out at least one case before tomorrow. Lori says. Kim begrudgingly agrees. Yeah, Shane's never been great with moderation. Tora attempts to sway them with, come on, guys, Shane needs to get drunk right now. He's so sad. Both the girls stare at her. Tora, when has getting someone drunk made them less emotional? Tora contemplates this for a moment. Okay, fair. She sticks her pointer finger in the air. But what if instead of giving Shane the alcohol, we just pour out on the grass? Lori blinks. Why on earth would we do that? So the grass can get drunk. I don't know. Maybe that'll make it shut up. Kim reaches in her cart and grabs each case by the handle. Or maybe a bunch of the billions of blades of grass that he can hear are angry drunks. Then they'll get mad and start arguing with each other. I don't think Shane can handle that right now. Put them back. Kim offloads the cases back into Tora's arms. She puckers her lips before sending the cases back in the cart, saying, fine, then they're both for me. When Kim's balled-up fist hits Shane's front door, it creaks open on impact. The girls are puzzled by this, but step inside. Shane, Kim calls, we're back. No answer. No movement. No pained yowling. No sobbing. Total silence. The girls walk inside and set the items on the dining table. Tora opens up her case of seltzer and pulls out a can. Lori pulls out a chair at the table and plops down, immediately holding her open hand out to Tora, which a can of seltzer fills. Kim takes the white noise machine box in her hand and heads down the hallway leading to the bathroom and Shane's bedroom. She tries the bathroom doorknob. It's unlocked and the room is empty. The lights were left on. She frowns and flicks the light off, closing the door behind her. She figures he has to be in his bedroom. Kim breathes a sigh of relief to herself at the notion that Shane was maybe able to fall asleep. She considers leaving and letting him rest, but she peers out around the wall and sees Lori and Tora sitting together at his dining room table drinking, content for the first time all day. She decides against leaving and softly raps on the door. Shane, are you in there? No answer. She presses her ear up against his bedroom door and listens intently, holding her breath. No noise. She speaks softly into the door. I'm glad you were able to get some sleep. I was really worried about you. Her hand wraps around the doorknob. She slowly twists it and pushes the door open. Light from the living room spills into the dim bedroom. She's expecting him to awaken, to stir, but her presence inspires no movement. She doesn't step inside. A shudder runs down her back. I got some stuff from the store that I think will help you. I've got a white noise machine right here. Do you want to plug it in? She takes one step into his cluttered room and turns to face his bed. There he is. The blanket is pulled up to his cheek, and he's lying on his side, facing away from Kim. There's an outline of something long and narrow balanced upright on the side of his head. She calls out his name one more time before she turns on the lights. Kim shrieks. Both of her hands shoot up over her mouth, dropping the machine as tears stream down her cheeks. Kim. The chairs in the dining area squeal against the wooden floor before both girls scramble to the bedroom. Lori gets there first, poking her head in the doorway and whinging, "Oh my God! The wooden handle of an ice pick sticks up out his ear. An eruption of blood spills out, drenching his head, his pillows, and blanket. The silver part where the blade meets the handle is lodged completely inside his ear. He drove it all the way in. His dark hair is caked with blood. Kim's shaking hand instinctively reaches out to the ice pick, but her fingers curl back. She yanks her hand back to her face and swipes her tears away. She snorts up a glob of snot. She instead grabs a blanket, covering him, and lifts it up. "Tora!" called the police. "Kim, what are you doing?" "Kim!" Kim ignores her friend and slips herself under the blanket, taking sniveling breaths through her open mouth. She rests her head on the pillow next to his. She lays herself in a small pool of red. Shane's blood is still warm. Kim reaches up under his shirt and sets her palm on his bare back. He's still warm, too. "Kim, get up. You're contaminating it." She blinks tears away and scoots herself closer to his corpse. She slides her free arm under his blood-soaked pillow, cringing as the heat warms her skin. Kim curls her other arm around his chest, carefully pulling herself as close to him as she can get. She holds her breath as she presses her face into the back of his neck, his matted hair rustling against and staining her forehead. Lori continues pleading, now crying for Kim to get up. Kim shuts her eyes and tries to ignore the metallic scent of his blood, tainting the way his body naturally smells as she breathes him in. She leaves gentle kisses in between his shoulder blades. Her lips are stained with his blood. She snuggles closer to him, ensuring she won't miss a second of feeling his body heat before it's ripped away forever. Evelyn's breath quickened, the air in the cabin suffocating, as though the world around her thinned. Her fingers dug into the armrests, feeling the worn fabric with its subtle roughness beneath her fingertips, but the pressure couldn't anchor her. The hum of the airplane engine sounded distant, like the world had slipped into another dimension. The faint scent of recycled air, tinged with a hint of coffee and sanitizer, filled her nostrils. It should have felt routine, but everything felt off, like she'd been here before, caught in this moment of rising panic. The flight had started like any other. Smooth takeoff, calm altitude, the flight attendants offering drinks and small talk. Then came the silence. Not a lull, but an absolute stillness that seemed to press into every corner of the cabin. No rustle of fabric, no clink of ice in cups, no soft whispers of conversation. Only the hum of the engines penetrating the strange quiet. Evelyn turned to the man beside her. Moment ago, he'd been typing away on his laptop, the rhythmic tapping accompanying background noise. Now, his hand hovered above the keyboard, frozen, his eyes wide and empty. A cold dread swept through her, and her stomach churned. The metallic taste of fear filled her mouth. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing against his wrist. Nothing. No pulse. No warmth radiating from his skin. Just an unnatural coolness that made her recoil. A strangled gasp caught in her throat, but she fought it down, forcing herself to breathe. This isn't real, she told herself, the words coming out in a whisper. She shook her head, as if the simple motion could reset the world. It's just a dream. Just a dream, she said, trying to convince herself. Her voice trembled, but she whispered the words as if speaking to them aloud could make it all vanish. The advice her grandmother had always given her resurfaced in her mind, faint but certain. You're never truly alone, Evelyn. Just listen. The answers are always there, waiting for you to hear them. It was the same advice that had guided her through childhood nightmares and adult anxieties alike. She twisted in her seat, eyes scanning the cabin. The mother and 14A cradled her baby against her chest, both unervingly still. The elderly couple across the aisle sat hand in hand, their faces peaceful, their eyes closed. The businessman 3 rows ahead remained suspended mid-sip, his coffee neither spilling nor moving. I'm dreaming. It's not real. I'm just dreaming. The words echoed in her mind, yet carried a hollow ring, like she'd chanted this mantra before. The passengers, every last one of them, were frozen, except for her heart hammered in her chest, the frantic rhythm making it harder to focus. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the seatbelt, struggling with the buckle, the cold metal slipping against her trembling fingers. Dizziness swam through her, but she fought it down, forcing herself to stand, to move. She had to stay in control. She walked down the aisle, her boots tapping against the carpet, the only sound in the entire cabin, each step echoing in the unnatural silence. Another whisper, her grandmother's voice again, faint but clear. Don't fear the silence. It's only a place for you to hear your own thoughts, your own truth. She touched the shoulders of passengers, shook arms, pressed fingers to cool skin. Nothing. There was nothing but the hollow silence and stillness. The overhead lights cast strange shadows across their frozen faces, making them appear almost like wax figures rather than people. This isn't real. It can't be. But it was real, wasn't it? The cabin was empty, save for her. There was no one to explain what had happened. No one to reassure her. No pilots. No flight attendants. No answers. Just the gentle sway of the plane as it continued on its predetermined path to where she couldn't even remember the destination anymore. The intercom crackled to life. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The static came first, followed by distorted words, broken and incomprehensible at first, like a radio caught between stations. Sit down! Her pulse pounded in her ears. She glanced at the timer on the instrument panel, red digits flickering, counting down. 0:14. Her chest tightened. What was she supposed to do with 14 seconds? What did it mean? A flash of déjà vu swept over her. She'd seen these numbers before, felt the same confusion. A sudden flash of clarity washed over her, her grandmother's voice sharper this time. Time's a teacher, Evelyn. When the moment comes, you'll know what to do. Don't doubt yourself. 0:09. It's not real. It's not real. She turned and bolted back into the cabin, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She couldn't think. Her thoughts spiraled, her mind desperate for a way out. The confined space of the airplane suddenly felt like a trap, the rows of seats an obstacle course she needed to navigate. Then another voice cut through, sharp and cold. The intercom crackled again. You have to remember. 0:05. The walls closed around her. The air thickened, the pressure rising, as if something unseen was trying to crush her. She stumbled, fighting the urge to retreat. The overhead compartments seemed to lower, the ceiling pressing down. But she wouldn't let fear win. Not again. The word again echoed in her mind like a revelation. A sudden realization gripped her. I've been here before. This wasn't the first time. The fear, the silence, the countdown, it was all part of the same loop. The airplane wasn't just a place. It was a recurring nightmare she'd experienced countless times. But this time, Evelyn knew better. The voice continued, crackling and distorting through the plane speakers. Sit down. No. The walls trembled, the lights above flickering. The frozen passengers' eyes followed her now, their pupils empty and hollow, but somehow aware. Their heads turned in unison, tracking her movements down the aisle, their mouths open too wide, stretching beyond what should be physically possible, and the voice that issued forth was not their own. Sit down. The countdown reset. 0:14. Evelyn clenched her fists, her whole body trembling with defiance. I remember now, she said to the surrounding air. I know what you are. The airplane shuddered in response, as if her words were physical weight. 0:09. The voice howled in anger, the cabin warping as shadows stretched and flickered. The passengers' mouths opened wider, grotesque and silent. The plane's walls seemed to bend and twist, as if reality itself were unraveling. The overhead bins popped open, oxygen masks dropping but hanging perfectly still, suspended in time like everything else. 005. The fear gripped her, the instinct to obey, to sit, to submit. The seatbelts across the aisle unclasped themselves, slithering like snakes, inviting her back. But Evelyn didn't move. She stood tall, feet rooted to the floor of the plane, and with one final breath, she let go. She released the fear. She released the illusion. The plane shattered. The walls crumbled into darkness. The passengers dissolved into mist. The lights blinked out, and the hum of the engines fell silent. Evelyn was falling. No awakening. Her eyes snapped open. She was back in her seat, the leather cool against her arms. The businessman beside her adjusted his tie, his fingers tapping on the keyboard, oblivious to her. The baby in 14A whimpered softly, the mother soothing it with a gentle murmur. The elderly couple across the aisle whispered softly to one another, their conversation fluid, unaffected. The flight attendant pushed the beverage cart forward, the wheels squeaking slightly on the carpet. The cabin was normal. The plane was normal. The gentle vibration of flight. The subtle changes in cabin pressure against her eardrums. The soft with the air conditioning vents. All perfectly ordinary. But Evelyn's hands trembled as they gripped the armrests. Her heart was still pounding, the memory of what she had just lived through hanging heavily on her chest. She swallowed, her breath shallow. The overhead chimes sounded. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing shortly. Thank you for flying with us. The captain's voice was cheerful, mundane, a stark contrast to the distorted commands she'd heard moments before. She glanced at her watch. Midnight. She looked out the window, the clouds parting to reveal glimpses of the city below. But beyond the clouds, something watched her. A presence, waiting, watching. The glass reflected her face, but behind her reflection, in the vast expanse of sky, she sensed it. The thing that trapped her in this loop time and again. This time, Evelyn didn't look away. She met its gaze, unflinching, steady. She was no longer afraid. The world had changed, and so did she. As the plane began its descent, banking gently to align with the runway, Evelyn felt a strange peace settled over her. The airplane cabin, once a prison of repeating nightmares, now felt different. She ran her fingers along the window frame, feeling the cool plastic, grounding herself at the moment. First time flying? The businessman beside her asked, noticing her white-knuckled grip on the armrest. Evelyn smiled, the irony not lost on her. No, she replied, but I think it's the first time I've been awake for it. He gave her a puzzled look before returning to his laptop. The plane continued its descent, the ground growing closer, more detailed. But Evelyn knew that somewhere, in another reality perhaps, a countdown was resetting, and this time she'd be ready. The passengers of Flight 227 had just completed their meal. The cabin buzzed quietly with the clinking of silverware, an intermittent laugh, and the faint sound of rustling newspapers. Ordinary, routine sounds that masked behind the fragile facade of safety the horror that loomed just beyond. A stewardess laughed at a joke told by a passenger. A man in first class swirled his wine, enjoying the final sip. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life, its static sibilant as a snake wrapping its way around the unwitting passengers. Then the voice, calm, deliberate, but with an unnatural solemnity, as if the captain was reading his own obituary. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. A moment of silence, just enough time for apprehension to germinate. I need to inform you of an issue. The words hung in the air like an executioner's blade, poised to drop. The atmosphere changed instantly, as though an unseen presence had blown a chilly breath over the cabin. permeating every crack and crevice, wrapping around each traveler like invisible fingers clenching into a fist. Talk stalled, laughter died, to be succeeded by tense silence, as though the whole aircraft had sucked in its communal breath. The pilot went on, his voice strained with shame, but shaking under the burden of the nightmare he had created. In my hurry to leave Charles de Gaulle Airport, I failed to adequately monitor our fuel levels. A long, ragged pause ripped through the intercom, as though he was fighting to get out the words. I am ashamed to say this. I know I have let you all down. A hollow, uncomfortable silence fell over the cabin, choking the air like an invisible hand squeezing against each chest. The pilot paused to catch his breath before continuing, his voice cracking under the strain. Since we have been flying for a long time, our destination could be beyond our reach, since we may lack sufficient fuel to get there. The finality of the confession hit the passengers like a physical blow, drawing the air out of the cabin, as though the aircraft itself had inhaled a gasp of horror. Some cried out loud. Others were paralyzed, their hands clenching armrests so hard that their knuckles whitened, as though through sheer force of will they could halt the unstoppable. A man grasped at his chest, his breathing shallow and fast, the first spasms of fear gripping his heart. The aircraft, once a sanctuary of order and technology, was now a prison of uncertainty. A metal coffin cutting through the emptiness at 500 miles an hour. Every flashing light, every jolt of turbulence seemed to foretell disaster. The whispers of fear were growing louder, building into a jarring buzz of terror. There were no strangers then, just the doomed, held together by the unspoken grasp of fear as they sped towards some unknown destiny. And then another violent and convulsive shudder that ripped through the aircraft as if it had been seized in a death grip by an invisible hand. One of the engines coughed, sputtered, and died. The whole plane shuddered as if it had been hit by an invisible blow, a jolting crash of bone that threw passengers from their seats and sent loose objects flying through the cabin. The sickening lurch sent drinks crashing, trays falling to floor, and overhead lockers bursting open, their contents spilling into the aisle. Gasps turned to screams as the cabin tilted, the aircraft going into an unnatural descent. The aircraft had already started to descend to New York, but now it was plummeting, no longer descending in a controlled manner, but spiraling out of control. The cabin lights flickered madly, casting crazed shadows on faces paralyzed with terror. The aircraft lurched violently, its damaged fuselage objecting to the stress. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling like ghostly apparitions, dangling inertly amidst the chaos. The cabin erupted into pandemonium. Screams of abject terror, cries for assistance, the raspy howls of those who recognize the inevitable. The night sky outside, once an endless expanse of stars and silence, now pressing like the walls of a closing tomb. The vastness had turned suffocating, a cosmic void ready to consume them. Below, the earth was no longer a distant haze, but a giant, looming thing, reaching out to snatch them with an appetite that threatened to consume them. City lights unfurled like streaks of flame, oblivious to the souls above speeding towards their fate. The altimeter ticked down at a remorseless pace. The aircraft was still too far from New York City, its decreasing altitude a grim countdown without reprieve. There were no longer any alternative airports, no deviations, just a relentless descent and the understanding that hope was running through their fingers like sand in a gale. The cockpit was a maelstrom of confusion. Alarms screaming, warning lights flashing like a dying pulse. The aircraft strained against gravity, shuddering so violently the control panels creaked. The first officer's white-knuckled fists held tight to the yoke, his forehead beaded with sweat, his voice, strained and almost lost in the din of automated warnings, sliced through the chaos. The second engine coughed, sputtered, and, with a final agonizing splutter, died in silence. A jolting stillness filled the cockpit, broken only by the otherworldly shriek of wind whistling past the fuselage. It was a kind of stillness that felt unnatural, deafening in its absence of power, a stillness that presaged catastrophe. The aircraft, a marvel of controlled engineering, was now reduced to a huge metal husk, a crippled glider flying through the darkness. The control panels blacked out, their frantic warnings muted, as if even the plane itself had given up. The first officer's breath caught, his fist still gripped on the dead yoke, as if sheer willpower could urge power back into the engines. His eyes bulged wide, darting to the altimeter, its numbers free-falling with heart-stopping speed. The first officer's knuckles turned white on the throttle. We're dead stick. No thrust. The captain's mind reeled. We can glide this in. His voice, which he tried to keep steady, trembled. He was not sure. It seemed to take forever for the ram air turbine to deploy, its little turbine opening up into the howling wind, like a desperate, last-gasp prayer to the emptiness. Inside the cabin, the flight attendants strode down the aisles with stiff formality, their faces drawn but determined. Their voices, strained as they were, carried the authority of rehearsed command. "Brace for impact, please," one of them screamed, her voice hardly cutting through the noise. A few passengers complied at once, throwing themselves forward, arms clasped around their heads. Others were paralyzed, their brains locked in denial, unable to comprehend the unimaginable. One man struggled with his seatbelt, shaking so hard he couldn't locate the buckle. A woman clutched the armrest so hard her fingernails cracked on the plastic. The emergency light strobed feebly, casting eerie shadows that twitched on faces contorted in terror. People shrieked, a loud, grating cacophony of terror. Some embraced their loved ones. Others slapped hands over their faces. Screams muffled by the deafening quiet of the plummeting plane. A flight attendant, holding onto the back of a seat for balance, mouthed frantic reassurances no one heard. The aircraft vibrated heavily, the fuselage complaining in protest of the strain of its powerless plummeting. Unsecured items flew around the cabin, bouncing off chairs and people. Each passing second seemed impossibly long, as if the fabric of time itself had rent asunder under the threat of disaster. The captain gritted his teeth, his hands trembling over the controls. The glide of the plane was erratic, its path a hardly controlled plunge into the emptiness. The cockpit echoed with alarms, relentless, screaming their warnings in a cruel mockery of hope. Smoke from the failing systems wreathed through the dim light, the acrid scent of burning circuits searing his lungs. And then, out of the spinning darkness, out of the turmoil, he saw it, a faint, glimmering glow in the distance, cutting through the blackness like a sliver of salvation. New York City runway lights, a fragile lifeline, quivering in the fog, teasingly distant. But could they reach it? Or was it an illusion, a mirage in the final few seconds before extinction? The first officer's breath caught, his heart racing in his throat as his eyes locked onto the gleaming light ahead. "We might make it after all," he whispered, his voice trembling with a faint, desperate hope, as though saying the words aloud could make it so. But beneath his words was the unspoken fear, the knowledge that they were still at the mercy of gravity, the wind, and fate itself. But they hadn't reached there yet. The trees rose like shattered black shapes, their gnarled branches reaching out greedily toward the plane, as if to pull it down into nothingness. He had seconds. His grasp of the yoke was vice-like, his knuckles white under the faint glow of the flickering gauges. The plane bucked in irregular motion that was wild, turbulence and gravity, resisting every movement. His heart throbbed in his head, but his mind was fixed in steel-sharp concentration. The first officer took a deep breath. Hold it just a little longer. The branches on top of the trees were closing in. The runway lights continued to flicker ahead, teasingly near, yet impossibly distant. They were on the brink of salvation, or doom. One last risk, one last wild maneuver. With a violent tug on the controls, he went for the gap, The tops of the trees scraped the underside of the plane, ripping at the undercarriage. The sound of metal on which screamed through the cabin, and then a deafening, bone-crushing bang, a merciless cacophony of screaming metal and bursting steel, as if the heavens themselves had fallen. The force of impact vibrated through the fuselage. Seats ripped from their mounts, bodies tossed around like dolls. Flames licked along the broken edges of the aircraft, illuminating the darkness in an otherworldly, flickering glow. A choking cloud of smoke rolled through the wreckage, its acrid grip tightening around every strangling breath of air. The ground trembled with aftershocks, debris still creaking and groaning in the burning wreckage. Then silence, a fragile, unnatural silence, shattered only by the crackles of fire and rough, strained breathing of those who remained alive. There were cries in the rubble, some in the distance, some close, bare with pain and shock. The reek of smoldering petrol clung to the air, a bitter reminder of how close they had come to complete destruction. And when the smoke finally cleared, the twisted remains of the plane lay stretched out like a broken, tortured thing, its bare skeleton scarcely discernible as the great ship that it once was. And yet, despite all the odds, everyone was alive, poised between salvation and oblivion, balanced on the brink of an impossible second chance. The captain, bruised and inexplicably alive, gasped as he released his harness, his sweat-soaked fingers shaking with aftershock. His ribs throbbed with searing pain, every breath a burning reminder of the savagery they'd just survived. He hauled himself up, vision fading, the metallic flavor of blood in his mouth. The debris lay before him like the scene of a nightmare. Flames licking across scorched metal, the bitter taste of fuel and smoke choking the air. Remote, tortured screams resounded in his mind, together with a ringing that had not stopped since impact. His head reeled, replaying every mistake, every warning he had ignored. The scale of his failure weighed upon him, more oppressive than the wreckage that enclosed him. He had made a mistake that should have killed everyone. A great artist once said, "Color, what a deep and mysterious language, the language of dreams, depending on the situation or distraction." This philosophy unquestionably plays an integral part in Herbert Truelove's meandering existence, floating and gliding from one state of contented, colorful contemplation to the next, regardless of the consequences. It is Tuesday. Spring has just about sprung, and a dapple week's sunlight is finally threatening to break through the clouds that have been in perpetual domination since last October. At least it seems that way to Herb, who, as we speak, is in a daydream of sorts, caught between the grim reality of his humdrum day job and the fantastical scenes that his mind is playing out to him. Today, softly tinted marshmallow cats and dogs with expertly curated mustaches and jaunty little hats are fleeting across his venturing mind. Everything is soft and hazy around the edges. The sun's faint rays kiss the scene with hues of pale yellow, blue, and pink, and across the dusty blue sky, cloud-like forms are enticing him away to somewhere far beyond the gray walls of reality, where Herb's flesh and bones exist. True love, shrill and pointed as ever, the bespectacled and suited Geraldine Ledbetter, a storm cloud personified, marches across the office and places herself between the window and Herb's reverie. She casts the darkest kind of shadow across the desk, perhaps the sort you might encounter in a terrible nightmare. Are the figures for the board meeting ready yet? The words, thunder reverberating in Herb's ears, but he is not easily fazed. Herb has learned that it is best to do whatever is asked of him. Herb knows that it's wise to keep his head down and complete his work to an adequate standard, so that it attracts minimal attention. Herb knows where his mind would rather be. The mustachioed marshmallow cats and dogs saunter away towards the rapidly graying clouds, and Herb, rubbing his eyes, waggles the gray plastic mouse to motion his laptop back into life. "Half an hour," mutters Herb as he adjusts himself to the reality that surrounds him. The cats and dogs disappearing into the cloudy horizon. His tired eyes flicker across the incomplete spreadsheet that occupies the screen. Conditional formatting highlights the cells that need to be completed in a garish bright yellow. As Herb knows from bitter experience, the department heads are notoriously tardy in submitting their month-end figures. And this month is no exception, and that will include projections for the second quarter. The dark outline of Geraldine Ledbetter demands rather than questions. Of course, around the edge of Geraldine's heavy form, Herb can see a butterfly hovering outside the window, its golden-tipped wings unusually early for the time of year, but splendid all the same as it flutters in the mid-morning light. On my desk by 11 sharp then Geraldine, engulfed within her ominous cloud, rumbles back through the office and is gone. The light resumes its place on Herb's desk, and his pupils contract for a moment. As he refocuses, he watches the butterfly as it continues to dance outside the window, coaxing and tantalizing, almost coquettishly, if a butterfly could assume such a demeanor. "Hey, Herb, look at me." Herb runs his hand over his chin, catching the patch of stubble that he's missed during this morning shave. The empty yellow cells blink at him. Herb is no fool, of course. He is something of a spreadsheet genius, and all the projections, graphs, and charts will update automatically as soon as he inputs the missing figures. He turns his attention away from the butterfly for a moment and flicks to his emails. Nothing. 5 department heads have still not submitted their figures. Herb detests having chased them. They make him feel insignificant, as though they have more important things to think about than a few numbers. Numbers that you should bloody well know if you had any clue what you were doing, thinks Herb. The tapping at the window draws his attention away from the screen. The butterfly is still there, and in the distance, pink and blue marshmallow cats and dogs with mustaches and Johnny hats are bounding along the treetops. The butterfly poses enigmatically on a small branch that grows out of the old brickwork, stretching and twitching its outstretched wings. Herb is so overwhelmingly compelled by the creature that he moves cautiously round